Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Giusi and I'm an intuitive healer, and I talk about lots of topics regarding healing, our subconscious programming, healing from abuse, as well as my journey of learning that I'm autistic. So welcome to my page. I have a lot of new followers, so I want to say welcome. And today's topic is an interesting one because it has to do a little bit about one of my most watched videos about how, why we end up being the targets of mean people often. And, that video seems to resonate with a lot of people and for a good reason. But this topic is, although it's kind of intertwined with that, it's going to be specifically about how come we don't integrate well with society and the real reason why we don't fit in to the societal norms and with those types of people, or the groups that tend to thrive on stepping on others to elevate themselves and all those other types of social hierarchies that exist in our world. So stick around and listen to that. So welcome. If this is your first time here, welcome so much. And for those who have been here for a while, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I cannot find my webcam, so I'm using my computer one. I have no idea where it is. As you can see, things are not unpacked yet. There is just so much to do, and because I work full-time, both of us work full-time, and there's just been lots of things going on, and not to mention that I was sick for a while, we just didn't have the time. And plus we decided to schedule some downtime for ourselves because we really needed it. We needed a break, and so we took a couple of out-of-city drives. I mean, I moved out of the city now. I'm no longer in Toronto, but we went for these little day trips this weekend and last weekend, and it is a long weekend here in Canada. Labor Day weekend, I think it is also in the States, I'm not sure, but yeah, welcome. And for those of you who have who have come to the Calm Collective, please note that the next one is happening this coming Friday, September 5th, finally coming back. I'm very excited about it. So yes, I'm using my Yeti mic because I know people were complaining about the sound. Unfortunately, when I use the mic on my laptop, the sound is very low for some people because I can hear it okay on my end, but for some people it's very, very low, the volume. So I am going to try to do this with my Yeti mic, and hopefully you can hear it a lot better. Please give me feedback in the comments if you hear it better. So welcome, and yes, there'll be more information about the Calm Collective. If you've never been to one of those, it's essentially, I also am a certified hypnotherapist, and what I do is I have this, it's the first Friday of every month usually, but I was taking a break because of moving, and so I'm bringing it back, and it's the first Friday of every month, and it is a group hypnotherapy that is centered around being grounded and calm. It is a very healing, soothing, and wonderful experience. It's a lovely little community that comes out. And honestly, because hypnotherapy can be quite expensive, this is a pay what you can event. So people usually donate like $10, $15, $20 to attend. There is a minimum donation but I mean, it's great. You come and hang out for an hour and you just enjoy this beautiful experience. So definitely check it out in the comments and register if that's something you're interested in. So welcome. Okay, today's topic, what I wanted to talk about, and I think I've talked about it in other videos about how we don't belong, or the real reason why we don't fit into these things is, for the most part, like, I feel like, what's a good way to put this? I feel like our brains operate in a very straightforward way, and without the bells and whistles and the the trimmings that make it look differently or whatever. And so we really are very clear on like how we might present ourselves. And truly and honestly, we really are. And the only reason we learn to mask is because society is not that way. Let's be clear about that, because if we were blessed in environments with supportive parents and society that allowed us to be who we were, we would never have any masking issues, and likely not have burnout, severe burnout, like I have been dealing with for the last couple of years. So this is really important to note. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you've watched my other videos, you will know what I'm talking about when I say that society is programmed to be a certain way, to make people not be empowered, to make them subservient, civil servants or whatever you want to. We're just cogs in the machine to benefit the greater good of those in power. And so we're not meant to. Our societal programming is, really rooted in, patriarchal and colonial programming, and it's just so many other things that keep us rooted in these systems of oppression, and also systems of that don't allow us to create community or self-empowerment and those types of things. And that's very much for a reason. And so when we're disempowered and things like that, we are more easily controlled, and we seek our approval and validation and everything else outwardly, from outward places. But not only that, you become dependent on that because society creates you dependent on that. They create you dependent on what they have to offer and give you. So anyways, so as we go along, we have these hierarchies and all this programming that is set for you to be a certain way. Now, most of us autistic people or neurodivergent people, I want to say people under the neurodivergent umbrella, oftentimes don't like to adhere to social programming, hierarchies, the rules. And don't get me wrong, as an autistic person, I love rules. But I love rules that make sense, that are there for a reason. Rules that are logical and are very they make a lot of sense, especially when it comes to respecting other people's boundaries or safety and things like that, or just things like that. There's some rules that make sense and are logical, and I understand them. But then for the most part, societal rules, the ones that are spoken and unspoken, because keep in mind that there's so many unspoken rules that this is where we struggle a lot, because we don't understand the social cues and things like that. And so it's difficult to exist in that. And so what ends up happening is that as we grow up, and this might be something you don't consciously kind of pick up on, but subconsciously you do. And so you're operating in this realm that feels like this play is being, happening, and that it doesn't make sense, any of it. And you don't understand why people do certain things, or why it has to be this way, or why that person got this when, it wasn't the logical answer to things. And so I there's so many examples I can give here, but use whatever examples are in your own personal life, because this can vary for everyone, from person to person. And so what ends up happening is that we start to question what is happening in our lives, and why we often feel left out and we don't belong. And I believe this is honestly part of the reason why many of us feel there's a camera on us always. And this isn't just me, and it's interesting because I learned that this is a common experience with autistic people. I went through my whole life always feeling that there's somebody, not in a paranoia type of way, oh my God, someone's watching me or following me, but in a way that like a movie, like a Truman Show kind of way, that there's always eyes on you, following you and your life story, and not in, like I said, in a paranoia way, somebody's out to get me or control me, not that kind of way, but just that my life is this weird movie. Sometimes I feel like I'm being one of those pranked shows, what's happening, none of this makes sense, is someone gonna pop out and be haha, but no. So I have learned that this is a very common experience with autistic people, where you feel like you're always being perceived constantly. And even when you're just walking alone, you feel like there's a camera on you, or somebody's always watching you, or I don't know. So this could be why we might be feeling that way, because we feel like everything is just like this stage that is fake and doesn't make sense. And so we're operating. I'm not saying this is why this happens. It could be a very different reason, obviously, but for some reason, I somehow feel like maybe that's why we think that. But anyways, with that being said, the biggest reason why we have a hard time integrating, or even though we try, we mask, because obviously we don't want to be ostracized, or we have to try to make a living. We need to try to exist. Otherwise, I mean, there's some of us who don't care. I mean, to a certain degree, I don't. And as I got older and healing, I've really withdrawn my energy from all those other things. Got no interest in doing those things that I tried to, or pretended to do, or attempted to do when I was younger. But now I'm like, I don't care. My time is more peaceful. But for the most part, we attempt to mask or fit in, or especially when we're growing up and we're younger, and we don't want to be the odd one out, which oftentimes we are. But the biggest reason as we get older, or when you're already younger, you already are, take this stance, why we don't fit in is because we feel the contrast. The biggest reason why we do not fit into societal programming and everything the way it is because we can feel the contrast. It is so evident and apparent and obvious to us. We physically feel the contrast of what is and isn't, what it should be like, and how it is, actually is. And so we feel that contrast. It really, it's very evident in our energetic body. Now, as you know, I'm an intuitive healer, I'm a Reiki master, and I'm a channeler and stuff. So we have our, if this is too woo-woo for you, that's fine. But obviously my channel is a very woo-woo channel. But there's a lot of people who are also autistic who become more spiritual and into woo-woo and things like that, because that stuff is exactly how it is. And there isn't weird societal programming that has a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word right now. I'm so sleepy. I'm gonna have some coffee. Maybe I'll think about it. It has a lot of when something's not true. What's the word I'm looking for? Someone else is probably thinking it's this word. When things are not like aligned properly, and society is constantly false and portraying things that are not actually like how it is, where spirituality is what it is. It is as above, so below, and it is what it is. It's just that it's energy, and energy, it doesn't lie. Energy is exactly that. And as autistic people, I've heard it explained as autistic people, we have 1 foot in 3D and 1 foot in 5D because of the way we're wired. For some reason, we are very sensitive to energetic, things. And, that's just the way it is for whatever reason. And there's probably a reason for that why we're created that way. And so because of that, we already feel things energetically before we even meet people, or even the rooms that we walk into. So we sense these things, and energy doesn't lie. And so when we sense the way things are, the way the world is, the way people are, the way any kind of structures kind of present themselves to us, it can feel very confusing and alarming to us, because we feel that contrast of what's going on and how it actually is. We can sense things that are false. We can sense things that are off. We can sense things that are wrong. This is why a lot of us have a strong sense of justice and other things like that. But we feel that contrast. Even before we get it, maybe in our minds, we already energetically felt that. in our energetic body. And so this is like one of the biggest reasons why we don't fit in, and why we end up being, I don't want to say cast aside or ostracized, but essentially we kind of are, because one of the things, if this is true for you, it definitely is true for me, is that I'm very vocal about those things. I have been, not growing up, because I had, I would say that I had some form of selective mutism when I was younger. I was very shy and I did not talk around in public situations. In work, I just was not that person. But as I began to do healing work and all that stuff, that started changing. And, once I learned boundaries and things like that, I started using my voice. My voice became a powerful tool, through going through therapy and other things. My voice became a very powerful tool. And so I started, using my voice. I became very active in my activism, not just in like animal activism, but also in labor activism. I became, a labor activist, and I also ended up being the vice president of my union, the local, that was where I worked and stuff. And so I started to use my voice, and that became a powerful tool for me. But as you often, unfortunately, end up learning, is that people don't want that. They don't want you to be that person. And even people within those systems of those activism systems don't really want you to be that person, because everyone plays nice in the playground. Even the structures that are in place that say they're fighting for human rights or all the other rights and things like that, they are also playing under the structures of the societal programming. And so when you go in there gung-ho about like being really passionate about these really important things, in theory, you would be the perfect candidate, because you're someone who's doing it for the right reasons, because you're advocating for these very important things. But people don't want the revolutionaries. They don't want the people who are the change makers. They don't want the people who are using their voice loudly like that. And so oftentimes we end up being that person. Now, hands up if this is you, where you might be in a crowd of people, whether it's at work or you're hanging out on a weekend or a meeting, or even in your family, and something happens and something is wrong, and then you're the one who becomes vocal and maybe even agitated and takes a stance on something, and you say something like either very loudly or very firmly, or take a very clear stand on something and point out the I guess you point out the error, or you point out the my words, sorry, I have because I'm in severe burnout, I'm having where I can't remember my words. It's so bad, because every day that I'm struggling with this so much. But you point out the I need to start reading a dictionary again. This is terrible. This is terrible for me as someone who is very much into linguistics and stuff. And as a writer, not remembering words is a very upsetting thing for me. By the way, I have 3 foxes that live in my backyard. I'm looking out the French doors right now because there's all birds and things going by. So, but you point out when people are the hypocrisy. That's it. You point out the hypocrisy, the error, and when things are wrong or blatantly unjust and various things like that. So hands up if you're that person who does that. So automatically people don't want you around because you're that person, and you're not the person that stirs the pot. You don't go in there always starting these maybe you do, but for the most part you're just someone who doesn't stand by idly and let people be very loudly and blatantly wrong, and they act as if you're the problem when all of a sudden you take a stance on that, in a clear stance, and nothing to gain from that for anyone other than the fact that that thing is really important that you're making a comment on. And so I feel like society often, oh, look at that cardinal. Sorry. We have a cardinal family that's in our backyard, and one of their babies they were trying to get them to fly. And so he was on the floor, and he was this little round, chubby baby, and the mom was like flitting around him, trying to make him fly. I should give you a little tour of the backyard one day. Look how beautiful. I love cardinals. They're gorgeous. I love how that big, like bright red pop of color against the trees just looks really nice. Sorry, I'm very distracted right now. So yes, this is a very important thing because this will be something we experience time and time and again because of our inability to just conform and allow people to be a certain way for no reason. Like, it doesn't make sense to us. And because of that contrast, we have difficulty integrating, merging, fusing, whatever you want to call it, into society because it doesn't make sense to us. And it's like, why do you just go along with it? And to some degree, we do operate a little bit like that in our lives because we have to. Like, I get up and I go to work, pay bills because I don't have a choice. And so I have control over the other things in my life right now. And so those are the things that I do have control over, who I spend my time with, my off time. So this is why I like to be alone. This is why I have, I've found a partner who is important that that we share the same views and values and stuff like that, and that I feel safe with, and I can share like my time with, because as you all know, I talk about my partner because I was single for over 10 years and I did not, after two long-term abusive relationships, I knew that I didn't want to share my space with somebody who wouldn't add to my life, somebody who I didn't, respect or saw these great qualities in as well. Because I did not see those great qualities in my exes, and I take responsibility and accountability for the fact that not that I deserved, nobody deserves any abuse you receive in your relationships, but I take accountability of that when I started doing my healing work. But even with my friendships, it's the same thing. I don't allow people to be in my field who do not mirror those same important values that I carry. And that is important to me. And it's important that we do that because the world so loudly tries to make you adhere to that programming and to disempower you and to make you disconnected with self. And so in order to connect with self, we need to be true to ourselves. And we need to feel connected and grounded and love ourselves. And I mean this in the most purest form. Love who you are entirely. Love all your shadow parts that you've rejected and that society has rejected, and integrate those into who you are. And just really show up as who you are and be honest and truthful, and start to, be at that vibration of like empowerment and love. And that's important because we need more of that. And I think that maybe that's why there's so much recognition of people being autistic or wired differently this way, is because we need that more now. We need more of those pillars in our lives, and it's a struggle to exist in our society, but our struggle is because our society's rules are specifically made in a way that doesn't really benefit people, and we are very well aware of that. And like I said, it's because we feel that contrast why we don't fit into society, and we don't feel the need to have to be a certain way, or that if you have this or that, it makes you more important than this person, and not in order to be respected, you should have this and this. Whereas my, the guiding factors or determining factors about whether you should be respected is, how good of a person are you? Do you have integrity? Are you compassionate? Are you kind? Like, these are the things. Are you loyal? Like, do your actions mirror your words? Like, these are the things that I base of my, whether I respect someone or value someone. I place someone's value on those things. I do not place someone's value on how many followers they have, if they're rich, if they're a CEO, if they're, so-and-so. I do not give a flying F about any of those things, and I never have, and I don't care. I do not care. And so it's important to note, like, that, somebody can have so much and have no value. And by society standards, because of these hierarchies that make no sense, society will deem this person as incredibly valuable. However, in my little scorns of things, that person has no value to me. They are literally worthless. And I don't mean to say that people are worthless, because they probably do have worth, but the way that they're operating and putting worth. Oh, the female cardinal. I wish I can turn this around. Let's see if I can turn it around. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, I don't know if we can see it. I can't turn this around properly. No, forget it. I can't. She's right on the other side of the window right now. We have on the ledge, sometimes I put bird seed there because I want to see the birds. Okay, I'll do a tour at another time, I promise. Okay, you're like, I've seen a cardinal before, I don't need to see it. I get excited about these things. Let me put the knife back, sorry, I don't know why I moved it. Anyways, so that's my point. My point is that this is getting to be a very long video. I pressed 5 on the camera when I looked there. Look at this beautiful. She's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, look at her. My cat, by the way, is laying at the window. I don't think he's noticed. Oh, the dad's here too now. They're both here. Oh, they're so beautiful. Just the rest of the video is going to be me freaking out about the cardinals, so enjoy. Let's get your coffee. Just kidding. Okay, so that's it. That's the video. The video is why we don't fit into the societal programming, why we have a hard time adhering to the social norms and things like that. And like I said, it is because we really feel the contrast so much, and it doesn't make sense. None of the way that things operate makes sense to us. And so all I'm going to say to you is keep doing what you're doing, and cultivate your own community, and cultivate like your own garden in terms of like really embodying who you are. I think taking back our personal power is going to be immensely important as the days go on. And that means, and I mean that in the most gentle way, like to pour love into yourself, to pour, compassion and grace into yourself. So when we can show up in a very like kind, compassionate way, be grounded, and to have patience and understanding, and but also be strong and vocal, using our voice, like those things are going to be really important, and it creates like strength and empowerment really, really, strongly within us. And when we create community with those others who are like that, and building us up like that, that's going to become more and more important as the days go on. And so that we can hopefully try to rebuild things in a better way in this world, because this is not it. Like the way things are, like there's such a disconnect, and so many people just are not like thriving, and that's on purpose. And so we, by connecting with who we are, and being unapologetically yourself and authentically you, is how we take back our powers, how we create change. And that is alchemy, that is, revolution. And I talk about this a lot, and I think it's important, and this is why I do these videos. This is why I talk about this. I want people to feel empowered. I want them to feel like they matter and that they're important, because you are. You are important and you matter, and I want you all to come along this journey with me, and to do your own journey to who you are, and to show up as who you are. And that is incredibly important, and I want that for all of you. So that's it. That's my video today. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. For those of you who stuck out to the end, you're awesome. This has been a long video, probably one of my longest, and I just want to say thank you. And that's it. Check out the Calm Collective link below if you want to join up. And that's going to be this coming Friday, September 5th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check it out, and we'll talk later. Bye. Take care.